Go ahead.
All right. So Maggie, can you please move on to next slide? So on behalf of MOSAIC, I would like to acknowledge and thank the Coast Salish people on whose traditional and unceded territories we are privileged to work and live, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Next slide, please. Now, I would like to introduce all of you to MOSAIC. What MOSAIC is. MOSAIC is basically one of the largest settlement non-profit organization in Canada. We serve immigrants, refugees, migrant workers, mainstream communities, and now a big chunk of international students because we are now getting more international students in the country. Basically, we provide all that support which is required by a newcomer to settle and integrate in this new country and adapt himself or herself into Canadian culture and lifestyle. Among this newcomer population, international students are also the one we are serving them with settlement support, employment support, and violence prevention support. Because we have seen that violence has been increased against them. Why? Because they are the very easiest and soft targets. Because you guys come here to study and you don't have your families along with you. You don't have any support system in this new country. So you become a very easy target for the perpetrators and the abusers. Next slide, please. Maggie, yeah, thank you. So violence prevention team from MOSAIC, we started this initiative to end gender-based violence and sexual violence against international students. So under this, one of our initiative, we provide them a very confidential space to share if something happens wrong to them or if they are facing any exploitation and abuse or violence. Because our understanding is that it is very difficult to disclose such things and talk about such things. And definitely it involves stigma, shame, blame, all these things. So we provide them a very confidential space where they can talk to us under a very non-judgmental environment. And we also provide them counseling support services, which are also free of cost if you are 19 years or older. And if you're younger than that, then we will connect you with other resources within the MOSAIC organization or outside. Providing them educational and informative group sessions like today's webinar, we are talking about the violence against international students. What are the resources and what are the real cases and how you can keep yourself safe? So all these discussions we keep on doing through group sessions so international students can connect with us and understand all these things for their own safety. Additionally, we provide very secure and safe space to connect you with police because reporting a crime to police is your duty as well as it is required so that we are not faced by another consequences of it. We will be putting more light on it further in the presentation. Next slide, please. So what was the objective of the project? Why we started these services? Like I already mentioned that international students, because they are very new in the country, they don't have any support system in this country, they are considered as the easiest targets by the abusers and the perpetrators. So it is very important that they are aware of all these services available and about sexual violence and consent in the communities and institutions. Equip international students with culturally appropriate community resources and support for sexual violence. We believe and we are aware that every culture is different. We provide cultural sensitive and appropriate services so that you can feel safe to discuss all these events or incidents happening around you with us. Understanding the terminology, consent, disclosures, report, and what is the role of the police services in it? Because there is always a fear, which we have seen in international students, that If we will go to the police and we will report this crime, maybe it will impact our PR files, maybe it will impact our student visas, maybe they will deport us. So these kinds of things are, we wanted to bring awareness among the international students through this project, that what are the myths and what is the reality. Next slide, please. So it is very important to first understand what is gender-based violence. Like, this initiative is to end the gender-based violence. So we should be aware of this definition as well. That gender-based violence and violence against women are two terms that are often used interchangeably, as most violence against women is inflicted by men for gender-based reasons, and gender-based violence affects women disproportionately. We have ever seen that, we have heard also that majority of cases we see or we hear or are reported are against women. And most of the offenders are the male members. The term violence against women means any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or private life. So this is, you need to understand that violence is not only the physical harm to someone, it can be psychological harm. You are playing with emotions of someone, you are giving someone mental stress. That is also called as a violence. So we need to understand what are the various types of gender-based violence. So next slide, please. So types of gender-based violence: verbal violence, physical violence, sexual violence, emotional, psychological violence, socioeconomic violence. Sometimes this awareness is not there, that verbal violence, verbal aggression, inappropriate oral gesture or written language is also considered as a violence. So it can take many forms, from verbal violence, hate speech on the internet, to rape or to murder. Physical violence, hitting someone, sexually exploiting someone. So this all, it's a big range, starting from verbal conflict, ending into maybe turning into and taking the shape, worst shape of murder. It can be perpetrated by anyone. Perpetrators or abusers can be anybody around you. So you need to be vigilant about these things all the time. A current or former spouse or a partner, a family member, a colleague from your workplace, schoolmates, friends, or an unknown person. It could be anyone. So gender-based violence.
Helen.
I think I got muted as well. So, okay. So gender-based violence, as with any type of violence, is an issue involving relations of power. So what happens in normally, how these conflicts, how this violence occurs, when there is imbalance of power in the relationship, when one has more control over the other. So what happened in the relationship? We try to accommodate need and happiness, in form of happiness, everything, whatever your friend, your spouse, or any person around you where you have a bit of liking, you try to give your control to them. That actually becomes the main issue of imbalancing of power. So we need to understand that how to create those healthy boundaries so that the relationship works in a balanced form and everybody has his or her own space to survive. And this is also based on the superiority and intention to assert that superiority in the family, school, work, community, in any group. It can happen in any group around you. So sometimes when in the beginning of the relationship, what we do, we are ready to accept everything because we like that person, because we think that, yes, if we will do this, he will be mine or she will be mine. But down the road, when you go into this journey of relationship and you found at the end that now your relationship is becoming toxic and becoming more, and the conflicts are there, violence is there, now physical abuse is there, emotional abuse is there. So we need to understand that we need to create a very healthy boundaries around ourselves so that before somebody breaches that and hurt you, you are being protected by yourself. Next slide, please. So there's another very heavy term. We always hear about these things through news or through other reported or unreported cases about sexual assault. What does sexual assault means actually? So many times we have also noticed that whenever we talk about sexual assault, we receive any cases around that, victim blaming started. So what is victim blaming basically? Oh, she was wearing this kind of a dress, that's why it happened to her. She was drunk and she went outside during nighttime, that's why that happened to her. Or defining manhood as dominant and sexually aggressive. So there are many reasons around sexual assault. When these incidents happen, the blaming started on the victims themselves. So this is very important to understand that sexual assault is an act of violence, one thing, and it is never the victim's fault. It is never the survivor's fault. Sexual assault knows no boundaries with respect to age, race, religion, socioeconomic status, or sexual orientation. Sexual assault is also referred to as rape. So any form of sexual contact without the person's consent, including the threat of sexual contact without consent, is sexual assault. So even if you threat someone on this, that is also considered as sexual assault. So you need to know these things. Then it includes anything from unwanted sexual touching to forced sexual intercourse. If you don't consent anyone to touch you and still they are doing that act, that is also considered as sexual assault. Most survivors of sexual assault are women and most offenders are male. As already mentioned, that offender could be anyone around you, can be your husband, your boyfriend, your partner, any acquaintance, date, or a stranger. He could be anyone. You need to be vigilant about these things, and you need to be very carefully create those healthy boundaries around you so that nobody breaches that and hurt you in any way. Next slide, please. And we also wanted to bring this awareness that how sexual assault is considered under Criminal Code of Canada. It is a crime in Canada, and Criminal Code of Canada has divided it into severity basis into 3 levels. Level 1, any forced sexual contact without bodily harm. Level 2 is forced sexual contact causing or threatening to cause bodily harm or using a weapon, imitation or real. And level 3 is forced sexual contact that causes aggravated bodily harm or endangers the life of the survivors or others. So we need to understand that sexual assault is a crime in Canada, and if you are reporting this crime, it will not impact your PR files, it will not impact your any file in the colleges or schools or universities you are part of, and it will be very confidential. And if you wanted to report a crime and you don't have that courage to go to the police and there is a hesitation because of any reason, you can contact us and we can help you out. That's why we are here, to bring this awareness that these kind of services and support system is available for international students. It's just a matter of understanding these things and coming out and talking to us. And another thing is now consent. People, this term has been used so loosely, and people, they sometimes misunderstood the meaning of consent. So it is very important that we understand the meaning. And for this, I would like to invite Jaz Johal to put more light on it so that we could understand what does consent look like. So Jaz, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Shivani, you covered a lot of good information.
Thank you.
Yeah. If I can have another request is just if everybody can mute their mics so that way there's no disturbance. And if you have a question, just put your hand up and we'd be more than happy to address your questions. So like I said, Shivani has covered a lot of information. I mean, you could talk about majority of those things for hours, but given the limited time that we have, we'll try to cap it as much as we can. Before I get into what consent is, I just want to welcome everybody. And this is, I mean, with COVID and whatnot, I mean, we've We can do in person, but it's also connected students from all across Canada pretty much. I mean, I heard there were people from students from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Vancouver. So it's a great way to connect. So technology is doing wonders for us even during COVID. A little bit about me. I've got 21 years of policing experience. I've done plainclothes policing. I've done uniform policing. I've done community policing, First Nations policing. I was also an instructor at depots. So I mean, I've got a varied amount of background in policing. So about consent. Consent is a voluntary agreement to engage in a sexual activity. So there has to be a degree of voluntariness. Anytime there's any coercion, any forced issues, then it is not a voluntary agreement to get into a sexual activity. Consent must be given at the time of the sexual activity. What that means is if you're out and about at a bar, you're dancing with this girl or a guy, and you're drinking, you're hugging, you're kissing, and next thing, the man is thinking that, oh, you know, which means it's a yes, that hopefully they're going to have sex. So he can think all he wants, but when it comes to that actual time of sexual activity, he has to obtain your consent, or she has to obtain your consent. Very important. A lot of people are confused about this, and they'll take you back to, in my interviews and stuff, they'll say, well, when I was at the bar and when we were drinking together, we were touching each other. To me, that meant that was consent. Well, that's not consent. I'm telling you, okay? Consent is also discussed in section 273 of the Criminal Code of Canada. And I mean, if that's something that interests you in details, you can read that section as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, so under 273 of the Criminal Code of Canada, consent is not, I repeat, not obtained when one party is asleep, unconscious, or impaired by drugs or substances. So it's very clear. If a person is sleeping and they start touching you, and because you're in their house, you have nowhere to go, that does not imply consent. You can't be unconscious. You can't be super drunk or high on drugs. That is not consent. Because a person who has sexual activity with you or that other person can be charged with sexual assault because they actually did not obtain any form of consent. When one party is abusing a position of trust, power, or authority, what that means is for somebody like me, for example, I can be viewed as a person in authority, a pastor, a government official, your boss. You know, sometimes if the manager is having a meeting with a frontline employee and they invite him to their office and they're touching their shoulders or talking them into certain things, they are actually a person in authority, right? And it applies a lot within military ranks or police and all that. It is heavily discussed. When one party uses fraud, coercion, threats, or manipulation, there's no consent obtained. So if there has to be a very open discussion about this, you can't manipulate somebody into sleeping with you, right? For example, what kind of example I can give you? You know, you'll often see these ads in papers that if you modeling agencies, they'll say, oh yeah, we're a modeling agency, come on down, meet us at this hotel. They're modeling, and they're saying, okay, take your clothes off, do this, do that for us. Next thing, they're trying to have engage you in any kind of sexual activity. That's a problem. Okay, that incorporates sexual assault. Next. Okay, so what does consent look like? Consent should never be assumed or implied and can be withdrawn at any time. It can be withdrawn during sexual activity. So you could be right in the middle of your sexual activity, and if the female or the male says, no, I don't want this to go any further, guess what? You must stop. Silence or absence of verbal or no does not constitute consent. Consent to one form of sexual contact does not mean consent at all, or other forms of sexual contact. So it's a repetition of some of the things, but just understand that you absolutely have to have consent to proceed any further. Having consented to a previous occasion does not constitute consent to all future sexual contact. This is a big one right now going on in India. Supreme Court of Canada is dealing with a case where they're talking about marital consent. You could be married for 10, 12, 15 years, and you may have had sex several times, or sorry, sexual activities several times. That does not mean that the next time you have the right on your spouse's body. You still have to have some voluntariness and some consent from your spouse to proceed further. Consent cannot be given by anyone other than the person participating in the sexual activities. Very straightforward. Consent must be given freely. It is not consent if there is threats, fraud, manipulation, or coercion. We talked about that. A consent cannot be legally given if a person is impaired by alcohol or drugs. We talked about that too. Consent cannot be given where the perpetrator induces a victim engage in sexual activity by abusing a position of trust, power, or authority. So if you're a person in authority and you have a new employee come in, you can't simply, coerce them into having sex with you, whether it's for better assessments, or whether it's for a better job, or whether it's for more hours. And putting things into perspective for you guys as students, be mindful of those things. If legally, let's say you're only allowed to work 20 hours in Canada, and somebody is offering you 40 hours, but to do this, this, and this with them, be mindful of that, right? Know that there is something not right here. Legally, you're only allowed to work 20 hours, but somebody's actually giving you a better job and giving you more money, but they want those things in return. So be mindful of that. Okay, I think we have a question in the group, in the chat.
Yeah, so would you like to go over it now?
Yeah, may as well read the question out. And
yeah, sure. So Jamie asked, I'm curious, how do we go about reporting it? For example, when something has already happened, but there is no proof for it.
Okay, that's very good question, Jamie. We will get to it. I know there's something about it in my additional slides. So remind me to cover that, and when we're talking about that, I will cover it for sure. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. Oh, you're welcome. So this is great. People can just put chats and questions and answers and comments. This is awesome. So disclosure and reports. What's the difference between a disclosure versus a report? A disclosure is an informal sharing of information about the sexual violence and with someone else. For example, family, friends, classmate. Disclosure can also be done to a police officer. For example, if I'm talking to somebody and I haven't chartered them, I haven't cautioned them, and all of a sudden say, hey, I've also been sexually assaulted. So what do? They have just simply disclosed to me. There's no official report yet, but it's a simple disclosure. But at that point, I have to say, whoa, hold on a second here. This is not just a disclosure. I now have to make arrangements to get a formal statement from you. Not only a statement, it has to be audio videotape statement. And I will put you in touch with our victim services unit so they can give you appropriate hand with everything. They can guide you through the process and walk you through. A report, on the other hand, is a formal statement, just what we talked about. Disclosure, you could be talking to your friend, a family member, or a roommate, or a classmate, anybody, a teacher. You just blurb it out. But whereas a report is a formal statement about the sexual violence that occurred, and that can lead to an investigation. So once you report it to the police, we will take a formal report, create a file, which is start an investigation, and then get the ball rolling. By that, we'll talk to you, we'll get any DNA evidence, any forensics, any videos, any pictures, any bruising, any marks. And then we also find out who the perpetrator is, the bad guy, and we go arrest them, take a video and audio statement from them to see what their side of the story is. And possibly a DNA sample. Okay. Go to the next. Okay, so reasons why international students may not report or disclose. I think Shivani touched upon this, that there is a fear of, oh, they're going to deport me, or You know, my student permit will go away. What will my family think? There'll be restrictions on me and I can't probably go to university. There'll be so many obstacles that I'll have to face. And some of the students are not clear about what the legal definition of consent and sexual assault is in Canada. They're not sure, even touching or, you know, back in wherever we come from, there's likelihood that, you know, when you're getting up on a bus, people would do something to you or grab somebody's butt. I mean, those things in Canada are very illegal. You can't do those things. You can't, anything that does not involve consent can be incorporated as sexual assault. Okay. Language and culture barrier. A lot of students, majority in my experience, a lot of students who come here, they don't have issues with language because I think there's a certain level of English that you have to have before you come here. But the cultural barrier is huge. What I mean by that is, what will people say? What will my family say? What will my sibling think or say? So those cultural pressures are huge because they don't want to shame their family. And sooner or later, either through the media or through police investigations, going to court, all that, family will find out, and what will they say or what will they think, right? So those cultural barriers are huge for international students, from my experience. They're not familiar with legal rights, justice system, and policies in the host country. I think Natalia is supposed to talk about some of these things. We'll talk about your rights. So it is very, very important, even when you become a PR, when you get your PR or when you become a Canadian citizen, it's very important to know what your rights are. And they're all outlined in Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canada. So get to know what your rights are. Even as international students, you need to know what you can and cannot do. Okay, next slide. Okay, reporting options. No report. I mean, again, the victim often, may wish to disclose, but not report it to the police. And that happens from time to time. But when you report it to a friend or a teacher or a classmate or whoever it is, they might say, well, look, I think you should go and talk to the police because this is pretty serious. And we somehow want this person to stop doing it to other people, right? And that's the more important part. But not reporting also takes a mental toll on you. It just sits heavy on you. You keep thinking about it over and over and over again. Even in a movie, when it comes up, you'll be thinking about it. Any other person, a third party talking about it, you'll start thinking about it. So those are some of the consequences of not reporting. But disclosure may help the victim survivor access various support services such as the emotional support, counseling, victim services, medical treatment, and financial aid. So those are some of the important things to remember, that you don't need to victimize yourself any more than what this person has already done to you. So just remember that there is help out there. There's lots of help out there nowadays. We're not living in a third world country. There are a lot of resources. There's lots of help out there. Reporting to an institution, the student may wish to make a formal report to the institution to start a student misconduct process. And of course, reporting it to the police. May wish to report to the police, ideally accompanied by a support worker from the institution or a community-based victim services. They can also choose to bring a friend or someone else for support. Basically, if you have some sort of support cycle or a support system in place where you can bring a friend or a parent or a roommate, say, look, and sometimes it just gives you that extra comfort. It just because you're walking into a police station, you've never been here before. You're going to be talking to a police officer, and there's nothing informal when you come to us. Reports are written, files are created, audio statement, video statement, all of that. So basically, 6 months down the road or a year down the road, when the case goes to court, you and I don't forget what was told. It's all on tape. We can simply play that tape for the judge. So, and we'll assign an investigator who talks to witnesses, who talks to you. And if the sexual assault is very fresh, we do forensics, we'll get DNA samples, all of that. So it gets pretty detailed. Jamie, you had a question maybe relating to this? What was the question again? Okay, I'm curious, how do we go about reporting it? For example, when something has already occurred or happened, but there is no proof of it. Very good question. So there's no fresh DNA or forensic evidence, but it has happened. We call them historical sex assault. You might have heard in the news, there are cases where it'll come up after 20 years. The male now is, for example, a hockey player who plays in National Hockey League. He was sexually assaulted, but he came out 20 years after the fact. So those are historical sex assault. And if you know the name and locate, even if the town, if you just simply tell me, hey, this was a person who was working in such and such church. I was in Manitoba from April 1st, 1987 to 1988 of September 30th. We can go back there and figure out who was that person working in that church. Right? So all you have to do is come in and talk to us and at least give us something so we can, and we do historical sex assaults all the time. They're not easy. They're very time consuming because we have to go back in history to trace some of those things. And keep in mind, there's no forensics, there's no DNA or audio video at the time. So it makes it a little challenging, but we can still break some of those cases. Yeah, Varun, you have a question? I have a query on sextortion and blackmailing. What's your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'm really very sorry for this sound. Actually, I'm just traveling. I have one friend. I don't want to disclose his name. Basically, he's from India. And a few months back, around 2 months back, that guy did one WhatsApp calling. It's on a video call with an unknown lady. And he did some nudity on the call. Later on, that lady made the video, like a recording of the video, and she started doing the blackmailing.
Mm-hmm.
So that guy got like scared, and he paid around, I'm not sure about, like around $500
Mm-hmm.
to that lady. But after that, he didn't got any call or any message because he just blocked to the lady. So that guy is my good friend. So he came to me and discussed the issue. And on that time, I asked him to talk to the Ministry of Indian Affairs. But we don't have a solution like how we can contact to them. So we did an online complaint on the ICR3 something. It's an international claim, like international report something. So I asked him to contact to the RCMP, but he was having some doubt. Like he said that if he go to the RCMP, no doubt the RCMP will help him. But he was just struggling like that. Will it impact on their like kind of police background or any criminal issue kind of things? Because still he already like he got some issues from that blackmailer as well as, and if he go to the RCMP, then it might be count as a criminal record for him, and he is an international student.
Yeah, no, that's very good question. So what happens is, first and foremost, the lesson for everybody here is that not to post your nude pictures or not to start these nude videos, because again, you don't know who's on the other end. And sometimes these people can put so much pressure on you that, I mean, people are willing to take drastic measures, right? So those are some of the things. That's the first and foremost thing. Don't put anything on social media that you can't retract. Once you send a nude picture, it's out of your hands. Once you send a nude video, it's out of your hands, and now you're left at the mercy of other person. But the Canadian laws state that if somebody is blackmailing you or sextorting you, it is criminal. It's against the law. So what we could have done is, had this person come to the police, we could have investigated. Now you don't get a criminal record for it. You're simply what we call is a complainant and a victim in this case. So you are filing a complaint, whereas the person extorting you or sextorting you or blackmailing that your friend, is a person who's the bad person. So we would, from that WhatsApp or the telephone number, we would be reaching out to that girl and talking to her. And if we can have all the phone records about her asking money for in return of destroying those videos, I mean, we don't even know if those videos are destroyed or not. We don't know if she still has those videos. We don't know if this is going to continue or not. So there's lots of factors. But yeah, I would strongly encourage your friend to talk to a police officer, even if he doesn't want to file a complaint, like a formal charge. At least we can go.
See different statements as well, like 40.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so at least it gives him a leg to stand on, where a police officer can go and say, you know, I mean, hopefully we can talk to this girl and say this needs to stop immediately because this person is under a lot of distress and high stress. And if that doesn't stop, then we can certainly charge her with blackmailing.
Sir, actually, the thing is that actually that lady is in India.
Yeah. Okay, so well, if this becomes an international type file, then your friend should be filing a complaint to the Indian police so they can go talk to her.
Yeah,
Basically what happens
what,
is I mean, if an offense happens in Surrey, then I'm responsible for it. But if
yeah, that is
not,
what they, yeah, so that is what he did. Like I asked him to go for the, we on the internet and we reported it. Not a police station, like an online complaint.
You're breaking up. I can barely hear you. You're breaking up.
Sir, I said that we did an online complaint to the few of the like officers who are handling this crime branch in the India. So they suggest us that we should contact to the local police of Canada. I mean the Surrey police. But here you are saying that if the issue is international, then you can't do anything.
Well, basically how we operate the police of jurisdiction is wherever the offense happened. Where is your friend at?
Right now, that person is in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yep.
So he can even go to Vancouver police and say, well, this is what I'm faced with. How can you help me? And they might even say the exact same thing because the offense is taking place in India. They're saying she's sending all those messages from India. So the offense is happening in India.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I jump in for 1 sec?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm an administrator at FIC in Burnaby. Varun, can you tell me what institution you're studying at and where your friend is studying?
Actually, I'm studying in Adelaide University. I'm really very sorry I can't share my friend details.
Yeah,
That's okay. No, fair enough. We've been seeing a lot of cases like this around the Lower Mainland, unfortunately. And I know if you reach out for support at your institution, they can help connect you into the appropriate police and look at options to report and disclose, similar to what we were just going through in the presentation too. So if you haven't talked to your institution, they can absolutely help you through this process and make the right connections with you.
Yeah, I told him to go to the local police, but he was just worried about the criminal record and all that, because he just shared this thing to me as an emotional support plus as a financial support. So I did it. And now I'm also, and to be frank, to joining this session was one of my first reason that I wanted to know the knowledge for this.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why I'm suggesting you talk to someone at Adler and they can help make all the decisions about how to report it and which police to go to and what your options are and your rights and that kind of thing, and help you through that process.
And by the end of the session, just want everyone to know that we will have some like resources and also our number like of our services and RCMP. So I know it's a webinar, like there are a lot of people joining us today. So like for like personal or like private information, like it would be nice to discuss like after the session or like individually with us so we can like help you appropriately. Yeah, I hope this like can answer your question, and then we can go on. And thank you.
Yeah, good. No, that's a good point, because in the interest of time, we only have so much time to cover a lot of material. And if there's something like an individual type scenario, we can talk about it after. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so reporting to the police. How can you report to the police? By calling the police emergency number 911, for example, if it's something that's happening or in progress and the bad guy is in your house in the middle of the night, that's something in progress, you can call 911, okay? But if it's already happened, the perpetrator is not there, it's a day old, a week old offense, a month old, and you feel like you've mustered up the courage and you want to talk to the police, you should, and this number is for Surrey RCMP only, it's 604-599-0502. And that's something you might want to even enter in your phone. It's Surrey RCMP only, 604-599-0502. If harassed while riding a bus or a SkyTrain, and I know a lot of students take SkyTrains and stuff, you can simply sit there and text 877777, and you can let us know what's going on. You can say, hey, I'm in coach number so-and-so. I'm going from Burnaby to New West. This is the next station coming up. This is what the bad guy is wearing. And he was touching me or harassing me or inappropriately touching me, whatever, right? At least now you can just sort of hide your phone and text them. And by the time you get to the next station, transit police will come greet him there. So what happens once you, oh, they're talking. Yeah, there you go. Oh, very good. Maggie, you're sharp. You're quick. Good. So, and what happens once you report the matter is that we will attend, we will talk to you, again, statements, and we'll hopefully get you to come to the police station so we can audio videotape all the evidence, creation of file. We call it a prime file. There'll be actual file number. The first 4 numbers will be your year. 2022 dash, it'll be 12345, right? That's your file number. So if you have any questions, you can call that non-emergency number and ask that, hey, can somebody please tell me what's going on with our with this file? And we will, that lead investigator will let you know as to what's going on. And in the background, the police officer will keep working towards it, and he will keep gathering evidence, speak to the bad guy, all of that. Whether it's pictures, videos, any of that, they will look after all that. Once all that is done, we put everything together on a report, which is called Report to Crown Counsel. And we abbreviate it, we say it as RTCC. We put that together and we forward that to our Crown Counsel, who are our lawyers in the courthouse. So then they look at the whole case, right from the time it was reported to the evidence, and they call it the elements of the offense. Are the elements of the offense met for this crime? If they say that, yeah, we have enough evidence to proceed, then they will charge that person, because they do all the charge approval. We don't approve any charges. We simply gather and submit evidence. Okay, next. Why report? If such incidents are not reported to police, there is a possibility of reoccurrence in the future, because remember, this bad guy, we need to stop. Or in Varun's case, this bad girl, we need to stop. So they're not victimizing. I mean, if they're doing that to one person, you don't know how many other people they've done it to, right? The sooner you report it to us, the sooner we can address it. The victim is not afforded the opportunity to seek out support services. That way, there's, like I said before, there's lots of resources, and the victims have a lot of resources at their fingertips nowadays. And there's a lot of agencies that'll give you a hand and guide you in the right direction, right? So you can even Shivani's agency. I mean, there's lots of Michaela. You know, there's lots of people at your fingertips who can give you that kind of information and guide you in the right direction. But gone are the days to keep re-victimizing yourself and saying, oh, I'm not, because every time it comes up, your mind and your body is going to cringe and say, oh, you know, your mind goes back there and you're reliving that whole thing. Whereas if you report it, at least for a year, year and a half, 2 years, there's a closure to that chapter. The guy gets charged, he goes to jail, and at least he gets some sort of closure, right? The perpetrator may continue to reoffend without consequences. We just talked about that. Police rely on the public to provide information on what is happening in our communities. Like physically, it's impossible for us to be at every street corner. We can't be at every street corner. So what do? We rely on our public, on our Canadian citizens, our PR, our students, work people that are simply here to work. This is what forms our community. So these are the people that are helping us on a bus, on a transit bus, for example. You don't have to say, oh, geez, I don't have my PR. Should I text message transit police or no? Oh, I'm just a student. It doesn't matter. You're a human being. If you see somebody being grossly violated, report it. Report it to the police. If you are the victim of a crime, report it. So we know. Because if you don't report it, this person just got away with a crime. What we want to do is we want to break that cycle and make sure that this person doesn't reoffend. Okay, next slide. Victim services, we just talked about, these are one of the resources available to you. Provides victims and witnesses of crime or traumatic event with information, community referrals, and emotional support through the criminal justice system. Victims are able to receive information and relevant services pertaining to the crime that has affected them. Even witnesses. Sometimes, for example, if you witness a stabbing, that can be pretty heavy on your mind and brain because you just saw somebody being stabbed to death. That is huge. Same thing, if you witness a sexual assault or something that needs to be reported, do it on behalf of that person. And that's what makes Canada a great place, because we look after each other. We look after our household, our streets, we look after our cities, we look after our province and our country. This is what makes us so great. And caring is very important. Caring is part of being a Canadian. So information will be provided to the victim about their participation in criminal proceedings. They basically walk you through as to what happens. They'll tell you, okay, 1 week down the road, your case is going to court. The day before, they'll say, hey, Varun, this case is going to court tomorrow. So they're just appraising, they're just giving you updates as they go along. So if you need to contact victim services, that's the number, 604-599-7600. And in, for example, at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, if they don't answer the phone right away, at least leave a message and somebody will get back to you. Okay, next.
Before we go further, there's a question in the chat from Rohit. How about on the road, if someone mess up an attempt for a threat by a bat or something else, what precautions should be taken?
Yeah, if somebody is threatening you with a bat, and if they're, let's say, if they're asking you for your iPhone or your backpack or your wallet or whatnot, just give it. Give it to them, because that bat can do some serious damage to you. You can get a concussion for life, you could be paralyzed for life, or you could even be dead. Right? So those are important. They're your iPhone, your $1,500, $1,300 iPhone, I don't know what they go for, but your books, whatever's in your bag, your wallet, if you have $500 or whatever's in your wallet, your credit cards, it is not worth fighting with these people. If somebody is asking you, it's basically a robbery, we call it. Anytime there's a threat of violence, a baseball bat that they bring and they're asking you for things, that is a robbery. So this person can go to jail for a long time. Whether they point a knife, a gun, a baseball bat, even a screwdriver, or a fake gun, they will be going to jail for a long time. Good question. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So here's some Victim Link BC. Victim Link BC is a toll-free, confidential. This is very important to understand that it's confidential. Once you talk to people, they're not going to be talking to others and, oh, guess what, Jazz told me, oh my God, he lives at this address, so this is his. They are very strict about disclosing personal information. They're multilingual, service available all across BC. So if you say, hey, I speak Cantonese, and that I need somebody Cantonese, they may not be able to answer your call right then and there, but they'll find you a translator who can actually speak your language, and then you can discuss it with them, right? They're available all across BC and the Yukon, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it can be accessed by calling or texting 1-800-563-0808. Or you can send them an email at victimlinkbc@bc211.ca. So that is some good information right there. If you think that, you don't want to talk to a friend, you don't want to talk to the ministry, you don't want to talk to the police, talk to them. These are all the resources that you have, but I just don't want any of our international students suffering by themselves and thinking that I have nobody to talk to. I have nowhere to go. I can, nobody can help me, right? They also provide services in up to 150 different languages, including many North American Aboriginal languages. It's a huge problem in some of the smaller Aboriginal communities, right? So, but today we're talking about international students. I would also strongly suggest that you write that number down and, or even program it in your phone, right? But don't put yourself in a position where somebody else can victimize you, whether it's through employment, whether it's in university, whether you're failing grades and your professor wants you to come have a meeting with them after hours, like any of that. Don't put yourself in a position where you can be victimized, right? It says staff can connect you with to a network of community, social, health, justice, and government resources, including victim services, transition houses, and counseling resources. Usually as international students, depending on where you come from, some have a lot of contacts, others have zero contacts. So if you're the type who has zero contacts, make sure you reach out to some of these resources. Don't feel that you're all by yourself, you're alone, and nobody's here for you, right? Very important. Okay, next slide. Okay.
Okay, before we go further, there's another question. Sometimes coming late night while returning from work, we see junkies in our streets. In a situation, if the threat us are not for robbery, but just for making us scared, what to do in that scenario? Or if they hit us, can we hit them as well for self-defense?
Yeah, this is so many questions in one question, but well, if they threaten you, then again, I wouldn't create some time and distance between them. If you know that there is a drug addict or somebody, first of all, if there is a drug addict and you know they're high, call the police, let us know that, hey, this guy may be high, he's aggressive, he's violent, whatever the case may be, so we can attend to it. We have all the tools on our duty belt to deal with aggressive or violent people. But if they're coming towards you, then there's no shame in backing up, right? Even if they're, hey, I'm going to do if they're asking for money aggressively, because if you tell me that this person is threatening me, I'm going to come attend the scene and say, Rohit, what was this person doing? And you're going to say, well, geez, he was standing there and he was being loud. Well, what does that mean? Did he say anything directly to you? Did he say, I am going to do this to you? If he didn't, then we don't have a leg to stand on. So just keep in mind, a lot of times people even call us about, oh, this person doesn't look right. He's got dreadlocks, he smells, he looks like he hasn't taken a shower for so many days, and oh, I'm scared of him. Well, why would you be scared of somebody who has dreadlocks, who hasn't showered? This person may be a homeless person, right? But if he hasn't said or done anything to you and is not aggressive towards you, is not threatening towards you, then you don't have a whole lot. This person is entitled to be on any street corner on any given day. That is their charter of rights and freedoms, right to mobility. That is that Canadian's charter of rights. So I can't simply get him to move along unless he's saying or doing something that he shouldn't be. And if he hits you, next part to your question, he's hitting you, you or your friend or a witness needs to call the police. You shouldn't be hitting back. You do that, he will get charged for assault and you will get charged for assault. Does that answer your question, Rohit?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, now I'll pass it over to the next presenter.
right. My name is Natalia, and I also work with MOSAIC in the violence prevention sector. My job here is a multicultural outreach worker, and I also have about 5 years of work experience, mostly with women experiencing domestic violence or abuse. So right now we're going to start by going over your rights as an international student, as well going over a lot of your options and support that is available to you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is medical assistance. So we know that many international students are not aware of the medical services that they can access and whether they are free for them access. And some might not know where to start to find out about these resources. So if you are a sexual assault survivor, it's really important that you seek medical attention after the assault. This is because not all signs or symptoms are immediately visible, or there's also the risk of pregnancy or STIs. So it's really good to, go to a hospital or a doctor and get it yourself checked out. So there are some different options when it comes to medical care after a sexual assault. So the first option is just receiving medical care, and that's it. So this would mean, again, going to the hospital or going to a doctor, and there wouldn't be any forensic evidence collected or any forensic documentation done. And if you change your mind, you can return to the forensic nursing services within 7 days of the incident. I believe this is from a BC standard. Again, I'm not sure. I know there's people from other provinces. And then the next choice would be getting medical care and then doing a forensic exam and also reporting to the police. So again, this would just mean, as it says, that you're going to get forensic evidence collected by medical staff, and then all samples are going to be collected and documentation will be given to the police. And again, the hospital does not test forensic samples. They're given to the police, so they would be responsible for sending those off and doing that. And then lastly, your last option would be medical care, doing the forensic exam, but not reporting. So then the evidence is just stored. And then any forensic samples that are collected will be stored up to a year. And then documentation taken during the exam will be stored indefinitely. And it can be given to the police if you later decide to report the incident. So again, it's just important to remember the decision to report a crime is entirely up to you. And it may take some time to decide what to do. But it's really important, if you're unsure if you want the forensic exam, if you're kind of not sure, to really go for it, because if you decide to report later, then you have that evidence, which is really, really important, especially, if the case ever goes to trial. And if you want more information on where to go to receive medical attention, what would happen at the hospital, what does it mean to get forensic evidence collected, bcwomen's.ca, I know this is more in the Vancouver area, but they have a really great website about all this information. So I'll link it in the chat after I'm done talking, but it really just walks you through the whole process, what to expect, what will happen like before the hospital, during the hospital, and after. And then lastly, for international students without medical insurance, nurse practitioners, which are very similar to doctors, can still provide free medical care and provide appropriate medications and antibiotics to victims of sexual assault. All right, so next we're going to be talking about requests for leave. So in January 2019, Canada changed the allowable leave from 90 days to now 150 days. The leave does not need to be informed to Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada, so the IRCC, but to your designated learning institute who needs to authorize your leave. So you would have to let them know, and they ultimately are going to decide. And then again, however, if the IRCC asks for proof of leave, you need to be able to provide them with the authorization from your school. And it's important to remember, you can't work on or off campus during an authorized leave from your study program, even if your study permit says that you're allowed to work in Canada. And if you do not resume your studies within 150 days, you must either change your status to visitor status or working status, or leave Canada. All right, so these are the following reasons that are acceptable reasons to leave your studies. So this includes medical illness or injury, pregnancy, family emergency, death or serious illness of a family member, change in program, study within the same institution outside of regularly scheduled break, dismissals or suspensions. It says dependent on degree of severity, and then postpone program start date. So again, just says, please note that these are just examples and that requests for leave are not limited to these 7 reasons, and some of these reasons are pretty general as well. So in regards to sexual assaults, the IRCC has still not specified how sexual assault would be addressed for a request to leave. As you can see, it's not one of the above mentioned reasons. However, because sexual assault and the trauma of it can have an effect on a survivor's mental and physical well-being, sexual assault may fall under reason 1, which would be the medical illness or injury. So it definitely, if this is something you've experienced, it could potentially, qualify as a reason to leave your studies.
Thank you so much, Natalia. I know there is a question in the chat box. I think we'll go over them all together in our Q&A session. So I'm Maggie from MOSAIC. I'm the Stopping the Violence counselor, and I'm also the workshop facilitator of Enhancing Healthy Relationship workshops. So it's really nice to see you all today or tonight. I know in some provinces it's already nighttime. So we're so glad to see you, everyone here tonight. So now I'm going to talk about some more support from the legal side or the financial side. So on the legal side, there is in BC, there's peace bond and also protection order. So these two restraining orders are to get you the legal protection from someone you fear. So these two restraining orders or peace bond are different, and they have different requirements when you need to apply. And so for peace bond, it can be ordered to protect you from anyone that you are feared from, or for your safety. While protection order can be ordered, can only be ordered against a family member. So it is meant to protect you from what the law calls family violence by a family member. And the peace bond, if there is a court hearing, it will be in criminal court. And when you apply, you can call the local police or RCMP to ask for a peace bond. While for the protection order, you may need to apply it through a lawyer, or you can apply it without a lawyer, but to the court directly. So there will be a court hearing in family court for the protection order. And finally, the peace bond can last up to 1 year, while the protection order lasts until the day the judge puts on the order. So for peace bonds and protection order, they're different in terms of nature and the requirement, but these are the ways to protect you from someone, no matter family member or from anyone that you're in fear of for your safety concern. So apart from the orders that we mentioned, there's another thing called civil claim. So civil claim allow survivors to seek compensation for harms on them. So you may wish to contact a civil lawyer about taking the perpetrator to court for damages suffered. a victim or a survivor of like they may sue the perpetrator in a civil court regardless of whether or not the sexual assault was reported to the police. So even though you haven't reported or you didn't report like it to the police, if you want to ask for compensation, you can still sue that person through a civil claim in the civil court. So another thing we would like to highlight on is the human rights case. So under BC Human Rights Code, sexual harassment is considered a form of sex discrimination. So if international students experience sexual harassment at work, school, tenancies, or any of the areas covered by the Human Rights Code, they can file a human rights complaint. That's the thing. You can keep it in mind. And then finally, for the finance, like we talk about the legal part, like for the law, like how can the law protect us? And now we can we can learn a little bit more on the financial side. So there is financial support on the abuse or the violence or things that you experienced, or even the legal action. So we understand that international students pay high tuition fees, rent, living expenses, and sometimes they may need to send money back home from their part-time jobs. So with work and school, they may not feel financially secure to proceed with the legal action that we mentioned before. But always remember, despite your status, like your immigration status, as long as you're in Canada, as long as you meet the certain requirement or eligibility, you can get the support from, for example, from CVAP. It's called Crime Victim Assistance Program that will give you different sort of assistance or financial support throughout this program if you are a victim of a crime. So even though you did not make a report to the police, you can still apply the ZVAP. And for this one, in MOSAIC, we have multicultural victim service worker that can help you with that. And apart from ZVAP, there is different kind of legal aid support or resources. For example, Access Pro Bono, BC Legal Aid, BC Law Schools, and the lawyer referral services, and different and some other different community legal resources center. So these are the legal aid that can give you free or low cost lawyer consultation or professional legal advice. So these are the legal support or legal aid that you can get. And some other thing is the assistance program or the support services can sometimes cover the transportation cost to or from police stations or courthouse, as well as the translation and interpretation cost. So we just want to highlight that for the legal action or for the the victim service, do not worry about the money at first. If you're in need of it, just reach out. There are so many services in the community, like Jazz mentioned, which are free. So you can just consult the staff first, or you can just reach out and ask for more information first. Then you can decide if you are going to apply for CVAP, or if you are going for the legal aid, or if you are going to take any further action, or just just not disclose. But it's so important to take a step further, to just ask or to just reach out so that we can help you, and we are here to help you. So now I'll pass to Shivani.
Thank you, Maggie, for sharing about all the assistance available, and thank you, Natalia. So like they mentioned that there are many support systems available for you. So we have prepared a list of all the resources. Of course, if it is an emergency, you need to call 911, and then Officer Jess told, that Victim Link BC. And other than that, we mentioned about legal resources and medical resources. We have included those all in the next slides. So there are 3 or 4 slides which are covering all these resources. So it will be really overwhelmed if I go by every resource one by one. So what we have decided that after this webinar, you will be receiving these slides, copy of these slides, so that all the resources are with you. And if you find it difficult to calling someone or contacting someone for support services, you can directly call us, and we can help you out and connect with the right resources and services. And with this, we are at the end, and we thank everyone for joining today. So this is the long list we can see. Maggie, can you just go to the last slide, because there are three. Then is the legal resources, medical resources we talked about. So we understand there are too many resources available. So we will provide all this information, but for easy contact, for emergency, definitely call 911. And otherwise you can contact me directly. I'm the coordinator of this program, International Students Project. And I have provided my email ID and my direct cell number, so we can be able to support you timely. So before we wind up, there was a last question, I think. We would like to touch on that as well. Okay. So Rohit has another concern that in case 2 sides, individuals engage in a verbal fight, is the person would be convicted for crime who hits first, or everything is fine till physical hit is not involved?
Yeah. So what happens is if 2 parties are arguing, whether it's 4 people, 2 people, 10 people, and there's 2 parties that are arguing generally, if the police attends, we will attend and we'll simply get the parties to leave. Because what you're doing right now is you're causing a disturbance. There could be other people living in that area, and now you're fighting or yelling or screaming is disturbing them. So they call the police, we attend, we can simply disperse the crowd and say, hey, nobody gets charged, you guys go home. We don't convict people, the courts convict people. We simply charge people. We don't even do charge approval. We gather evidence, we put it on paper and send our paperwork to Crown. They approve the charge. Once charged, you go to court, and if the courts will find you guilty or not guilty, that's how you get convicted. Okay, the police doesn't convict anybody. But yeah, the second the person hits somebody, you can be charged with assault. The person that's being hit is the victim. The person that hits you, yeah, it will get charged with assault.
Maggie, can you stop sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah, that's more convenient when you see each other a bit. So if anyone has any question or concern they want to share or they want to ask anything, please feel free.
And it doesn't have to be, sorry, it doesn't have to be about what we discussed today. Even if there's any other issue or something that you're going through that you think myself or somebody on the panel can help you with, feel free to ask any of them, or something that you've experienced, just that you want to share with the rest of us.
Are you able to hear me?
Oh, sorry, your voice is really breaking up, so.
Am I audible? Hello.
Not quite.
I'll switch to my Wi-Fi.
Oh, you know what? This works now. This is better. Try again. Okay, we can circle back to Aditya, but does anybody have any questions for the panelists?
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah, oh good. I was using my internet the whole time. So the thing is that are any of these services like available across Canada, or is it only limited to Surrey?
Well, policing wise, I mean, there's policing all across Canada. I can only speak for policing. I mean, any city that you live in, there's 911 services available, and there's a non-emergency number available. So especially the larger centers, they have all those amenities. But If you're looking at other services, I'm sure there are a lot of resources in the community. You just have to reach out and talk to people and say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Who do I reach out to get this information or that information? So yeah, I mean, today's age of internet and Google, there's lots of information at your fingertips.
Also, one more thing, when it comes to rights, I was thinking about getting more information around um, what if some accident or something happens at work. Like I recently got a burn mark on my hand, and it was like a major wound, but they count it as a minor wound. But the company did not have any compensation in place, or it it is there, but I'm not sure about it. So how to go and approach about that? Because company will not tell you that you can get compensation from us. You need to know about your right. So somewhere I was for the session, I was looking information on that end as well.
Yeah, see, in that case, because it's workplace injury, you can contact WCB. There is WorkSafe BC, and they can guide you in the right direction. But also keep in mind, you have to be within those. A lot of times what happens is people, when they get hurt at work, they're thinking, oh, geez, legally, I'm only allowed to work 20 hours. And right now I'm in my 40th hour or whatnot. And I'm, because I'm taking cash money. So going back to my original statement, don't put yourself in a position where you're doing something illegal and now you can't get compensation. If you were completely legal, working legally, it should be no problem, because you can simply say, hey, this is a workplace injury, and this is what I've experienced. I need some sort of compensation. And if there is compensation, they'll give it to you. If they say, well, because some of the employers might discourage you to apply for WCB because their WCB insurance goes up, right? So those are some of the things, but that's not your problem, that's their problem. If there is a compensation for that, you should certainly apply for it, as long as you are, again, legal. But if you are doing something
I'm legal,
you shouldn't be doing, then it could turn around and be problematic for you.
It's just that I browsed through the documents and I was unable to find something. So that's why I was looking for information. Like I browsed the internet before coming to the session, but I
Okay.
could not find anything to claim for. So the thing is that I was upset because there no burn cream was applied also. Like I was not given the burn cream even after getting a burn mark, and I was working legally. So I was at least expecting that. Um, so I was a little bit, what shall I say, having a bad feeling
Yeah,
after getting heard that there was no.
you were upset that you weren't looked after, but your option is also to, if they didn't have a first aid kit, you could have easily gone to the hospital, right? Get treatment
Yeah.
there. Yeah, you do have medical coverage. So those are your options, but don't neglect your wound because your employer didn't give you anything to put on, right? So you have options. You
Okay.
can go to a pharmacy, you can go to the hospital and get treatment.
Okay.
But also
Yeah.
take pictures of your injuries and document it, so that way you have some record keeping that this is something that happened.
Yes, and just want to, thank you, Jess, for the information, and just want to add that I'm sending out the information from WorkSafe BC, so you can actually report a workplace injury or disease, like you mentioned, the cut. So you can always call or contact WorkSafe BC to file a claim, or even though you're not sure if you are going to file a claim, they can always answer your questions or answer your concerns, so you can always reach out to them for further information. I hope it helps.
I have one question. Can I discuss it?
Sure. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So I have a question. Like, it was for the last year. It was happened with one of my friends. He was in a contact with a minor girl. So the story was that he was, in touch with that girl, and that girl was, I guess, 16 or 17. But since he started talking to her, she never told him that she's a minor. But one day, what happened is that that girl, all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. but she started texting him that I will call police on you. I will say them that you are sexually harassing me, but there was no proof and no video, no, picture at all. But still she was saying that I will call police on you. So my question is that in that case, without any proof or something, so just for the complaint with the minor, is there any action to be taken on the adults or not?
Well, that's a very good question. And a lot of guys fall into these traps because if it's, we have our undercover units that work online pretending to be underage girls. So when you're on online chats and when you're on online dating, you have to do your due diligence, which means you or your friend, you have to do your due diligence to make sure that that person is not under the age of 60 or not a minor, right? So once you don't establish that, it could be problematic. Because if you're talking to somebody and they even give you a hint that I'm only 14 or I'm 15 or I'm 6, then right away that information, that conversation should come to an end. But if you still carry on, it could be problematic for your friend. And if there's no evidence, there's nothing to suggest that that person, you're just talking to her and at no point has she disclosed your age, then I think also the onus is on your friend to say, well, how old are you? She could be 11 or 12, killing time on internet. But once we see that conversation, because we have police officers that go online and pretend to be minors, right? So once we see that conversation, it's a problem for that guy.
Thank you.
Was this even helpful, or does this even, today's webinar, did it even make sense to you guys, or was it relevant? Was it important? Can we do more of these, or just give me any feedback? What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, everybody
Yes,
type into the chat or speak up as well. Or yeah, reaction would be great for everybody to know.
कौन से वाले उसमें बना फोटो कोलाज?
No, sorry, that was probably not for us. All right, so I think we are coming and to the end of our webinar.
Somebody has a question there, Jane Lane.
Oh, I just, that was just a reaction. This session is actually informative. So thank you again for your time, everyone.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and just on the feedback part as well, we will be sending out a quick 1-minute survey for you all to fill out to let us know how this session has gone and the value that you receive from it. So I believe this is coming into the end of our session. So I want to really to give a big thank you to Jazz and to MOSAIC to really bringing this wonderful session and really informative session to us. And everybody who's here on the call, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this important topic. Do reach out to all the different organizations out there that are available to you and speak up. Anything that's related to your own safety, you are in charge and we are here to help. So do reach out to your university, do reach out to the nonprofit organization in your province. And again, Shivani, thank you so much for being a great partner over the past couple of months and making this available. Lastly, this session was recorded, so we will be sharing out the recording as well as the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Pat, for organizing and giving us this an opportunity to connect with the international students. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Yes. And thank you, Jess. Special thanks to you, in fact, for taking the time to connect with us and giving us and educating us on this important topic. Thank you so much for all your support.
Oh, you guys are always too nice to me. I seriously appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye, Pat. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.